Chapter 1. The Gala, Part 1a. The chandeliers arrived first, dripping light like wealth, whispering that if you stood beneath them long enough, you might be gilded too. I had learned not to believe chandeliers. They glow for everyone and belong to no one. So I made my own light. My dress didn't ask permission to enter the room. Black velvet poured over me, fitted and sure. The lace bodice skimmed my ribs before surrendering to a disciplined sweep that trailed behind me like a controlled rumor. The train listened when I turned. The train obeyed. My makeup was acquired, their soft matte skin, a clean wing, a berry mouth that told the truth, even when the room asked for pleasantries. My locks were coaxed into an intricate updo, coils and loops, pinned with small white petals that might have been too romantic if I wasn't standing beside a man who treated romance like a pinned butterfly, labelled, preserved. Tremaine looked exquisite. An exquisiteness. Loved him back. The black velvet of his jacket matched mine, with the kind of symmetry that photographs memorize. His cufflinks winked without trying. The satin stripe on his trousers drew a crisp line between the man and the myth he was building with relentless, admirable devotion. His hand rested at the small of my back in a way that said, "This is my wife, and also this is my brand." I didn't flinch. I'm fluent in both. We were a power couple, in a room that thirsted for power. Balcony tickets to an opera of self-congratulation. The ballroom breathed perfume and ambition. Laughter rose like steam from plates that were all garnished, and no hunger. A string quartet contributed something tasteful near the bar classical pieces shaved down to background. The event had a cause, they always do. There were scholarships to fund, and a wing to name, and a glossy program promising that our generosity would be photographed and tax-deductible. "Baby, come meet Marcus," Tremaine said, guiding me toward a banker with kind eyes and a ruthless portfolio. "Reagan, this is the senator's chief of staff," he murmured later. And I smiled warmly, shook hands firmly, and answered questions about the non-profit. Like I wasn't counting how many times my husband introduced me without naming my work. It wasn't unkindness. In this ecosystem, his wins were currency. Mine were narrative. I told myself, that's why I liked the dress. A little claim, staked on a map, that often forgot where my country began. We paused for a photo. A Tremaine smile snapped into place. The precise one he had refined for annual reports. Magazine features. My own smile was softer. The kind you wear when you know things no camera can catch. The photographer's flash-stitched light across our retinas. For a second, we were exactly what the room wanted. A tableau of success, black velvet squared against the world, the promise that if you did everything correctly you might get to stand where we stood and pretend it didn't cost you anything. From the corner of his eye, Tremaine spotted someone from the firm. I felt his attention leave me the way you feel, subtle, chilling. He excused himself with a quick kiss to my temple that I accepted like a receipt. I drifted along the room's edges where the air was cooler, and the speeches sounded like the ocean. Steady, distant, survivable. A server offered me a flute. I took it from my hand, not my mouth. The bubbles climbed the glass like ambition. That was when I stood half beneath the far chandelier, not courting it, but letting it do its job, tool in the way that steals inches from ceilings. Dark-skinned, a presence rather than a performance. His suit was black, but not the waiter's black-tailored. Along a private geometry, fabric that had learned his body before it agreed to drape it. His jaw was clean. His mouth rested in a line that could tilt into laughter or refusal without asking permission. He spoke to a small knot of men who leaned in, as if his words were slightly quieter than the room, and therefore more valuable. And then he looked up. The gaze landed lightly, like a hand testing the surface of a pool. The sound around me slid a notch lower. He didn't smile. Not yet. He didn't devour me with his eyes. Cheap hunger's loud. He registered me. That was worse, or better. The distinction depends on the hour you ask me. A quartet member reset a music stand. Glass chimed. The chandeliers hummed. Between one breath and the next, memory stitched itself to sensation. The time a mentor told me some people hold attention the way other people hold doors, without thinking about it. The time my grandmother said, "Child, learn the temperature of your own skin. The world will try to tell you." My wrist warmed where my pulse lived. I shifted the flute to my other hand, as if that could quiet anything. A woman joined him, all satin and certainty. She belonged to the room and to her self-posture. Like a password, recognition hit a beat later. Shelley partner at Tremaine's firm. I'd seen her in boardrooms, her intelligence folded into elegance, like a blade wrapped in silk. She touched the man's arm. Not acclaim. The coordination when her eyes found me, she offered the faintest of nods. The kind that says, "Let's keep the floor level." Reagan. Someone trilled, and an event coordinator swept me into a quick hello about centerpiece deliveries. The order of toasts, I answered, with the right brightness and the right brevity. Then slipped free again, returning to the room's cooler perimeter, as if it were a shoreline that could keep me honest. "Have you met my husband, Jameson?" Shelley asked later, when a migrating constellation of guests pulled the four of us into the same orbit near a tray of champagne flutes. Her voice held that gracious steel women in power learn to temper, a sound that made men straighten their jackets and women square their shoulders. "I don't think I've had the pleasure," I said. We shook hands. Electricity didn't crackle. It traveled, precise, inconvenient, like a note, slid beneath a door you already locked. His palm was warm. His grip was human, not performative. I felt the exact moment his attention decided. "What brings you here tonight, besides the obvious?" he asked, one corner of his mouth participating before the other. "My husband," I said, matching his tone. "And my non-profit. I run an organization that connects youth and young adults to credentialing, especially folks re-entering after incarceration or recovery. We just got a construction cert pilot off the ground." "That's real work," he said. "Not the 'that's cute' men. Sometimes aim at women doing community labor." Shelley's eyes softened, just enough to register that she'd heard the calibration too. "She's being modest," Shelley said to no one and everyone, "the way leaders place facts where the room can't misplace them. Our pro bono committee cites her outcomes when they need proof." Outcomes, I echoed, the word I wear like a talisman in rooms that prefer narratives. I like outcomes. Same, he said. I'm a multidisciplinary entrepreneur. Translation. I spin plates in 3 industries. Pray this ballroom has carpet. A quick flash of smile toward Shelley affection. That wasn't performative. She's the one who likes these rooms. I like the people they pretend to raise money for. I laughed. A short sound with teeth. Then we agree on the target and negotiate the method. Before the air could decide what to do with that sentence, Crystal chimed from the dais. A toast was assembling, the kind that gathers like weather, everyone turning their faces toward the podium. Glasses lifted by habit and instruction, the quartet softened to a courtesy. Staff ghosted through with refreshed fruits. As the crowd turned, Jameson shifted a fraction closer to reach a glass from a passing tray. His sleeve brushed my wrist. Heat moved across my skin, like memory choosing a route. He didn't apologize. He didn't linger. He simply existed at the distance between appropriate and aware, and the space itself learned a new temperature. I steadied my breath, unbothered by appearances, abruptly attentive to physics. On stage, a board chair began her gratitude. Liturgy. Donors, partners, the city's benevolent scaffolding. Tremaine reappeared at my side, with timing that would have impressed the stage manager. His hand returned to my back, familiar as a light switch in a dark room. He pressed his lips to my temple. The camera in the next aisle caught it. To the room smiled at our brand of devotion. I smiled too, because the truth is complicated, and I am skilled at carrying more than one at a time. To humanitarianism and entrepreneurship, Jameson murmured. Low enough for only me to hear. A toast, almost a joke, and almost a vow. I lifted my flute, my mouth deciding before my caution could file any objections. To outcomes, I said, and the tiny bell of the clink rang in my bones. We drank, because the room required it. I set my glass on a passing tray in the same motion. Something slid into my palm with a magician's confidence. Creamy stock, clean black type. Jameson. Read. At the bottom, a neat inked number, written by a hand that favoured fountain pens and directness. He didn't say hit me up sometime. He didn't say anything at all. His attention had already returned to the cadence of the dazed to the way Shelley's profile angled toward the lights, like someone who knows the value of being seen, the cost of being visible. Come on, baby. Photo with the board. Tremaine's voice arrived with a smile attached. He was radiant, a sun with orbiting planets, who knew their place. I slid the card beneath my phone case with a movement so practiced it startled me, like muscle memory I didn't know I owned. The edge of it cooled my fingertips. The speech concluded. Applause rose. The quartet reclaimed the air. We moved toward the stage, the velvet of our evening arranging itself for the cameras. I let Tremaine lead, toward a senator, then a donor, whose wife had donated more nights of her life to causes than any check could count. There was a silent auction I ignored, and a conversation about tax policy that I did not. The dress did its job, and the train obeyed, and the petals stayed pinned, as if they had been dead. At the edge of the riser I looked back, just once, just long enough to test whether the room would tilt. Jameson stood half-turned, head inclined toward Shelley, listening with the same disciplined attention he'd offered me. He did not search me out. He did not need to. The line between us had already been drawn. Not a rope, a thread. "Humming," Ready, Tremaine asked, offering his hand for the stair. His palm was warm with the ordinary goodness of a man who knows how to show up when the flashbulbs arrive. "I'm ready," I said, and for the camera I was. Inside, something else took a slow breath. The photographer cued his sequence. Serious, then soft, then celebratory. Somewhere between soft and celebratory, I felt the card under my case like a neon sign 2 blocks over. Not loud enough to interrupt, too bright to ignore. I tilted my chin. The shutter clicked. A second later, applause again, perfumed as the air. We stepped down. A woman in a sequined sheath congratulated me on the dress that saves lives. I thanked her. Maybe it did. Maybe it was trying to save mine from being mislabeled. Tremaine's hand returned to my back. We floated toward the bar for water, toward donors for warmth, toward the door for air. I answered a question about measurable impact with a number I trusted and a story I respected. I told a program officer the truth and made it sound like an invitation, which is the only way truth travels in rooms like this. Across the parquet, a laugh I already recognized tilted upward, then cut clean. The chandeliers held their breath. I exhaled for both of us. "Car in 5?" Tremaine asked, leaning close enough that the words tickled my ear. The affection in the question made me ache, the kind that arrives when someone is kind to you. "And you have been lonely in ways you can't name." "In 5, I said. We made the rounds required by the social laws of gravity. We shook hands a fraction longer than sincerity demands. We nodded, like people who will remember the names. We won't. I thanked the caterer, because anyone who feeds a city deserves witnesses. I returned 2 texts from Aria about Monday's site tour with a thumbs up and a promise. I did not touch the card. I did not have to. It had already touched me. Outside, night pressed its cool palm against the glass. The valley lights winked like patient stars. Somewhere behind me, crystal chimed again. A last toast or a final announcement. I couldn't tell. I felt the tension move in the room, away from me, toward the stage, toward whatever legacy required one more sentence. Felt it the way a person feels. Weather turning. I reached for Tremaine's arm. He offered it. We stepped toward the door. Behind us, without choreography, another couple turned toward the same exit. I didn't look. I didn't need to. The thread hummed once like a tuning note, and went quiet. The night opened,